Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something powerful today. In a world that never stops talking, where noise is everywhere, sometimes the greatest strength you can show is silence. See, everybody wants the last word. Everybody wants to defend themselves. Everybody wants to prove their point. But your silence, your decision not to respond, not to argue, not to react, can change everything. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It's discipline. It's self-control. When you refuse to fight battles that don't deserve your energy, you are telling the world, I know who I am, and I don't have to prove it to you. That silence speaks louder than 1,000 words ever could. Many people in today's world think that silence is a sign of weakness. They assume that if you don't respond, if you don't argue back, or if you don't defend yourself, then you're somehow less powerful, less intelligent, or even afraid. But the truth is far from that. Real strength is not always found in the loudest voice or the sharpest comeback. Real strength is found in the ability to control yourself, to discipline your tongue, and to stay calm when everything inside you wants to explode. Silence is not weakness. It's a higher level of strength that very few people are willing to practice. Think about the last time someone said something hurtful to you. Your natural instinct was probably to fight back, to say something equally sharp, maybe even harsher, just to prove that you wouldn't be walked over. That's human nature. But silence at that moment is far more powerful. It takes discipline to hold back words that you know could hurt someone just as deeply as they hurt you. It takes control to pause, to breathe, and to decide that not every action requires a read. That choice of silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It shows you value peace over pointless conflict. Discipline is not easy, and silence requires a kind of discipline that comes from maturity. When you're young, you feel like you always have to prove something. You want to be seen, you want to be heard, and you want to show people that they can't disrespect you. But as you grow, you realize that not every fight is worth fighting. You start to understand that energy wasted on meaningless arguments could have been invested in building your future. Silence, in this sense, becomes a filter. It allows you to choose where to pour your effort. And that ability to filter, ladies and gentlemen, that's not weakness, that's wisdom and strength. Self-control is another part of silence that is often misunderstood. Imagine being in a heated situation, maybe at work, at home, or even with friends where everyone is throwing words around like weapons. It takes enormous self-control to remain silent, to refuse to add fuel to the fire. Self-control says, I don't have to let my emotions dictate my actions. Self-control says, I know the power of my words, so I'll use them wisely, not recklessly. When you choose silence, you're not being passive. You're being intentional. You're deciding not to let anger, pride, or ego take over. That's not weakness. That's strength at its finest. Even in leadership, silence is one of the strongest tools a person can have. Great leaders don't always speak the most. They often listen the most. They remain silent so they can hear different perspectives, weigh situations carefully, and act with wisdom. Their silence is not a void. It's a space filled with thought, patience, and strategy. And in personal relationships, silence can save you from saying words you can't take back. Many relationships have been destroyed not by silence, but by words spoken in anger that should have been left unsaid. Silence in the right moment protects love, trust, and dignity. Silence is also connected to faith. In moments of prayer or meditation, silence allows you to connect with something greater than yourself. It's in silence that answers come, that peace enters, and that strength is renewed. This kind of silence is not about hiding or avoiding. It's about aligning yourself with purpose and clarity. A person who knows how to embrace silence shows that they don't need constant validation from the outside world because they already know who they are on the inside. So when people mistake your silence for weakness, let them. What they don't see is the power it takes to hold your peace, the strength it takes to stay calm, and the wisdom it takes to rise above. You're not losing by staying quiet. You're proving that you've mastered yourself, and mastering yourself is the greatest form of strength there is. There will always be opportunities to argue, to debate, to prove yourself right and someone else wrong. Every day presents chances for conflict, whether at work, in your home, with friends, or even with strangers. But the truth is, most of those arguments are not worth your time. They drain your energy, cloud your mind, and steal your joy. That is why protecting your peace is far more valuable than winning an argument. You see, winning an argument might make you feel good for a moment, but protecting your peace will keep you strong for a lifetime. Think about the last time you had an argument. Even if you won by proving your point, how did you really feel afterward? Chances are you carried some of that tension with you, replaying the conversation in your mind, feeling the weight of what was said. Arguments, even small ones, can stay with you. They create stress, they invite negativity, and they keep you from focusing on what truly matters. When you decide to let go of the argument and walk away, you're not giving up, you're choosing peace over chaos. And peace, unlike a temporary victory, has long-lasting value. Peace is one of the most precious things you can have in this life. Without peace, your mind is restless, your heart is unsettled, and your body is drained. Peace gives you the ability to think clearly, to act wisely, and to move forward without carrying unnecessary burdens. That's why arguments, no matter how tempting they seem in a moment, are usually not worth the cost. You might win the words, but lose your calm. You might win the debate, but lose your focus. Protecting your peace ensures that you keep your spirit intact. Many times people argue not because they want solutions, but because they want control. They want to drag you into their storm to get a reaction, to prove they have the upper hand. If you fall for it, you lose your balance. But when you stay calm and protect your peace, you're showing them that their storm can't shake your foundation. That kind of strength is more powerful than any words you could throw back. It sends the message that you're not controlled by anger, by ego, or by the need to always be right. You're controlled by wisdom. Protecting your peace also means valuing your time. Every minute you spend in an argument is a minute you could have invested in something meaningful, your dreams, your goals, your family, your growth. Time spent fighting is time wasted. But time spent protecting your peace is time invested in your future. Choosing not to argue doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about where you're going than about what someone else thinks. In relationships, protecting your peace often means knowing when to stay silent. Sometimes silence diffuses tension faster than any clever comeback. Sometimes walking away speaks louder than raising your voice. And sometimes letting the other person believe they've won is really you winning because you didn't let the argument steal your peace. At the end of the day, love and respect are preserved when peace is protected, but they are easily destroyed by constant battles over who is right. Faith also plays a role here. There are battles that belong to God, not to you. When you choose to protect your peace, you are trusting that not every fight needs your participation. Some things are handled better by silence, patience, and faith. By not engaging in every argument, you give space for solutions to come naturally, and you allow yourself to stay aligned with your higher purpose. So many people think being strong means always standing your ground and proving themselves. But true strength is measured by how well you protect your peace. It takes courage to walk away. It takes wisdom to stay calm, and it takes maturity to know that peace is priceless. Winning arguments might satisfy your ego for a moment, but guarding your peace will nourish your soul for a lifetime. Life can get so loud that sometimes you can't even hear yourself think. The world is full of constant noise, phones buzzing, social media shouting, people offering opinions, problems demanding your attention. In all that noise, it's easy to get lost, to feel confused, and to wonder where you should go next. That's why silence is so powerful. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of clarity. When you step back, turn down the volume of the world, and choose to be quiet, that's when you start to see things for what they are. That's when you begin to hear a voice greater than your own. That's when God's direction becomes clear. Clarity doesn't come when your mind is racing, when your emotions are boiling, or when your heart is restless. Clarity comes when you allow yourself to be still. It's in the stillness that thoughts line up, priorities become visible, and confusion begins to fade. Silence creates space for your inner wisdom to rise, and in that space, God can speak to you in ways that you might have missed if you were too busy talking, arguing, and worrying. It's not that God isn't speaking, it's that sometimes we're too loud to hear him. When you embrace silence, you give yourself the chance to tune in to what truly matters. You start noticing the gentle nudges in your heart, the small reminders, the ideas that come seemingly out of nowhere but carry so much truth. That's God's way of guiding you. And the Bible says God spoke in a still small voice, not in the earth, quake, not in the fire, not in the storm, but in the quiet. That's a lesson for all of them. God doesn't always shout. Often he whispers. And you can't hear a whisper if you're constantly surrounded by noise. Silence also helps you separate your feelings from your faith. Sometimes we confuse temporary emotions with permanent direction. Anger, frustration, fear, they all create noise inside you. They push you toward decisions you'll regret later. But when you quiet yourself, when you pause before reacting, you allow space for God's wisdom to settle your emotions and give you clarity. What looked urgent suddenly doesn't feel so urgent. What seemed impossible starts to make sense. What felt hopeless begins to feel hopeful again. That's the power of silence. There are moments in life when you're desperate for answers, but instead of finding them, you find yourself drowning in opinions, advice, and endless chatter. Silence cuts through all of that. When you stop chasing every voice around you, you start hearing the one voice that matters most. God's direction doesn't always come in lightning bolts or grand signs. Sometimes it comes in the calm assurance you feel after sitting in silence, the peace that settles in your heart when everything around you says panic, the strength you feel rise up even though nothing has changed yet. That's God. That's clarity. Silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means making space for the right things. It's in silence that creativity flows, that new solutions appear, that hidden strength surfaces. People often say, I don't know what to do next. The truth is the answer is already there, but you can't see it through the noise. Silence is like cleaning a foggy window. It clears your vision so you can see what was already in front of you. And when you see clearly, you walk more confidently. So when life feels overwhelming, don't always rush to talk it out, post about it, or argue your way through it. Sometimes the greatest power is to sit in silence, let the noise fade, and listen to the whispers of God. In that silence, your mind clears, your heart steadies, and your path becomes visible. And when God gives you direction in silence, you can walk forward with a strength and certainty that no amount of noise could ever give you. Negativity is like a fire. It spreads quickly, it feeds on reaction, and it grows stronger the more attention you give it. The harsh words people say, the gossip they spread, the criticism they throw your way, all of it is designed to spark a reaction. If you answer back, if you argue, if you let yourself get dragged into their energy, you're adding wood to their fire. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to respond, you cut off the oxygen that negativity needs. You take away its fuel. And without fuel, even the strongest fire dies out. Silence is not about ignoring what's happening around you. It's about refusing to let someone else's darkness pull you into a battle that doesn't serve your growth. Think about how negativity works. Someone insults you and you snap back. They come at you again and suddenly it's a back and forth exchange. Before you know it, your entire mood is ruined, your focus is gone, and your day is wasted. All because you gave their negativity the reaction it was hungry for. But if you had stayed silent, if you had chosen not to respond, the energy would have stopped with them. Negativity cannot survive without an audience, and silence is the ultimate way of showing it has no stage in your life. People who live in negativity often thrive on drama. They want to push your buttons, they want to see you break, and they want to pull you down to their level. But your silence shows them you're on a different level. Your silence says, you don't control me, I control me. And that silence frustrates them because it starves their need for conflict. The more you practice this, the more you realize you don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to engage with people who only want to drag you into the mud. The most powerful move you can make is sometimes to make no move at all. Silence also works inside you. Sometimes negativity doesn't come from other people. It comes from your own thoughts. That little voice that tells you you're not good enough, that you'll never make it, that you're wasting your time, that's negativity too. And just like with outside voices, the more you argue with it, the stronger it seems to get. But when you meet it with silence, when you stop feeding it with your energy, it begins to lose its power. You don't have to answer every doubt in your head. You don't have to fight every fear. Sometimes you just need to stay still, let those thoughts pass, and focus on what's true. Silence in your mind allows space for peace to enter. And peace will always starve out negativity. There's also a kind of dignity in silence. When people try to tear you down with words, your silence shows that you won't lower yourself to their level. You rise above, not because you couldn't answer, but because you chose not to. And that choice demonstrates more strength than any comeback could. Over time, people come to see that you're not someone who can be baited into unnecessary battles. Your silence becomes your shield, protecting your energy, your joy, and your focus from those who would love nothing more than to see you break. Negativity will always be around. People will always talk. Situations will always test you. But you don't have to give those things power. Silence is your way of saying, you don't get to live rent-free in my head. You don't get to decide how my day goes. You don't get to control me. And in that silence, you take back control of your life. Negativity cannot grow where it is not fed. It cannot grow where it is not fed. And every time you choose silence, you're starving it, weakening it, and proving to yourself that your peace matters more than someone else's poison. Relationships are delicate, and they thrive on the choices we make every day, what we say, how we act, and even what we choose not to say. One of the most powerful choices you can make in a relationship is the decision to hold silence when emotions run high. Silence, when used wisely, is not avoidance or indifference. It is a gift of space, a moment of restraint, and a chance for love and understanding to grow instead of being destroyed by careless words. When we are angry, frustrated, or hurt, the first instinct is often to speak quickly. We want to defend ourselves. to prove our point or to make the other person feel the pain we're feeling. But words spoken in anger can cut deeper than we realize. They can damage trust, create scars, and build walls that are hard to tear down later. Choosing silence in those moments does not mean you are weak or that you don't care. It means you are protecting the bond you share. It means you value the relationship enough to pause and wait until your emotions settle before responding. That pause can make the difference between a conflict that tears people apart and a conflict that is resolved with respect and love. Silence also creates room for listening, and listening is one of the most important parts of any relationship. Too often, people listen only to reply instead of listening to understand. But when you hold silence, you give the other person the space to express themselves fully. You let them feel heard, and that alone can soften hearts and reduce tension. Sometimes people don't need you to talk back or defend yourself. They just need you to be silent long enough to hear their side. And when both people feel heard, understanding naturally begins to grow. There is also a kind of healing power in silence. Imagine two people in the middle of an argument. Voices are raised, emotions are boiling, and it seems like nothing good can come from continuing the fight. But when one person chooses silence, the atmosphere begins to change. Silence breaks the cycle of back and forth attacks. It creates a pause where love has the opportunity to re-enter. It's in that pause that both people can reflect, calm down, and remember why they care about each other in the first place. Silence opens the door for reconciliation, while constant arguing only locks it tighter. Holding silence doesn't mean you never speak up. It means you choose your words wisely. It means you know that timing matters. And sometimes the best time to speak is not in the heat of the moment. It means you recognize that words carry power. And if you want your words to build instead of destroy, you need to wait for the right moment. By choosing silence, you give yourself the chance to think clearly, to filter out words that come from anger, and to save your energy for words that come from love. Even in the happiest relationship, silence has its place. Sitting together in quiet without needing to fill every moment with conversation is a sign of comfort and deep connection. That kind of silence says, I am safe with you. I don't need words to prove it. It's the kind of silence that allows two people to simply be together without pressure or pretense, and it strengthens the bond in ways that constant talking never could. In every relationship, whether it's with a partner, a friend, or family, silence is a tool of love when used wisely. It prevents unnecessary hurt, it creates space for listening, and it gives emotions time to settle so that understanding can grow. Where anger would have destroyed, silence builds. Where pride would have pushed people apart, silence pulls them closer. Holding silence is not losing the argument, it's winning the relationship. It's choosing love over ego, understanding over reaction, and connection over conflict. And that is how silence allows love and understanding to flourish. Every situation in life doesn't require your voice, and not every confrontation deserves your reaction. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes when you choose not to respond in the way people expect you to. Silence in the right moment is not passive. It is an active choice, a strategy that can shift the entire direction of a situation. When you choose silence over reaction, you take control of the outcome because you are no longer being pulled by someone else's energy. You are setting the tone. People often assume that silence means defeat, but in reality, silence can be the strongest form of communication. It says, I refuse to be shaken. I refuse to let this situation take me out of character. That response changes everything, because when others expect you to argue, to lash out, or to collapse under pressure, your silence unsettles them. It forces them to rethink their approach. Instead of fueling conflict, silence creates space for reflection, for calm, and often for resolution that could never happen in the heat of an argument. Silence has the power to change the outcome because it shifts focus from reaction to observation. When you are silent, you can see the situation more clearly. You can notice things that would have been hidden if you were too busy talking. You can read the room, understand the emotions at play, and recognize the motives behind people's actions. That awareness gives you the advantage. Instead of reacting blindly, you now respond wisely. Or sometimes you realize no response is needed at all. And in many cases, that non-response is what diffuses the tension and prevents the situation from escalating. Think about it. How many arguments have spiraled out of control simply because both sides refuse to be silent? Words stacked on words, voices raised higher and higher until the issue was no longer the original problem, but the damage caused by the fight itself. Silence breaks that cycle. It stops the chain reaction before it grows into something bigger. It shows that you are more interested in peace than in proving a point. And that shift in energy can calm even the most heated exchange. Silence is also powerful because it cannot be misquoted. Words can be twisted, taken out of context, and used against you. But silence leaves no room for manipulation. When you choose silence, you protect yourself from being dragged into traps set by people who only want to see you stumble. It's a shield that guards both your character and your reputation. People may wonder what you're thinking, but they can't twist silence into something that's not. That kind of control over the narrative changes how situations play out in the long run. There are also times when silence is the loudest statement you can make. Walking away from disrespect without a word speaks louder than any comeback. Refusing to respond to negativity shows more strength than meeting it with equal energy. Remaining silent in the face of provocation demonstrates self-control that commands respect. That silence changes the outcome because it sends a clear message. You cannot be manipulated, you cannot be shaken, and you cannot be controlled by someone else's action. In personal growth, silence changes the outcome. By giving you the time and space to choose your path wisely. When life presents you with tough choices, rushing into words or decisions can lead to regret. Silence, however, allows you to pause, to breathe, and to connect with your deeper wisdom. In that pause, the right direction often becomes clear. And when you act from that place of clarity, the outcome is stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your true purpose. So never underestimate what silence can do. It is not emptiness, it is power. It changes arguments into peace, confusion into clarity, and conflict into resolution. It protects your energy, guards your dignity, and sets the tone for how situations unfold. Your silence is not a weakness. It's a powerful response that shifts the balance and creates outcomes you could never achieve by speaking in anger or haste. Sometimes the most life-changing thing you can say is nothing at all.